2025, they held the record for the best win percentage in NBA history. Their coach, Greg Popovich, is the winningest coach of all time.
Coach Popovich is not the Spurs. He's the NBA.
From 1997, when they drafted the best power forward ever.
You hear a lot of other people say Tim Duncan is the greatest power forward to ever play the game. I agree with that.
To 2017, the San Antonio Spurs won 50-plus games in 17 consecutive non-lockout seasons.
So they never beat themselves, and that is exhausting for the other team.
For 20 years, the Spurs were a synonym for excellence, discipline, teamwork, unselfishness, and finding great players in the draft.
We used to call it the program.
But how did the Spurs maintain that level of success for that long? This is the story of the Spurs way, and how one small market team became the longest tenured dynasty in NBA history. The Spurs were founded in Dallas in 1967 and were named the Chaparrals, competing in the ABA. In 1973, the franchise relocated to San Antonio and was renamed the Spurs. 3 years later, they were one of 4 ABA franchises that joined the NBA when the leagues merged. But unlike the Pacers and the Nets, who struggled for years after joining the NBA, the Spurs hit the ground running, qualifying for the playoffs in 7 consecutive seasons. Led by the Iceman, George Gervin, the Spurs made 3 conference finals in that span, with Gervin winning 4 scoring titles. However, when Gervin and center Artis Gilmore got older and left the team, San Antonio missed the playoffs for just the 2nd time in franchise history. But in return, they won the ultimate prize for all losing teams, the #1 draft pick in the 1987 draft.
The San Antonio Spurs.
They got Dennis.
David Robinson from Navy.
And after serving 2 years in the Navy, the Admiral.
David Robinson
He's
from
towering
Navy.
over these niggas, bro.
And after serving 2 years in the
man's towering over everybody else, bruh.
Navy,
And the man's
the
strong
Admiral
as shit,
finally
swole
arrived
as fuck,
and immediately transformed the franchise. The Spurs won 56 games in 1990, which was 35 wins more than the previous year,
Get up
and set
there.
the record for the
You
biggest
can't guard me.
turnaround in NBA history. With Robinson, Terry Cummings, and Sean Elliott, San Antonio became a perennial contender. But they could never get over the hump and make the finals. The Admiral was winning all individual awards, but even with the addition of Dennis Rodman, the furthest the Spurs went was the conference finals in 1995, when they got destroyed by Hakeem and the Rockets.
I mean, I don't even know how I can say it with a straight face, but I thought most of the time I defended him pretty well. The man just played, I mean, as well as I've seen anybody play in a long time.
But then, in the 1996-97 season, everything changed. Due to the season-ending injuries to Robinson and Chuck Person, the best shooter on the team, the Spurs lost 15 out of their first 18 games, after which Coach Bob Hill was fired. In his place came a little-known guy named Greg Popovich.
I'm honored to have the opportunity to accept this challenge and work with the Spurs, and the only guarantee I'll make is that I'll work with every fiber of my body to make the situation more successful than it already is.
Who had previously worked as a general manager of the team and had no head coaching experience at the highest level. The Spurs finished the season with just 20 wins. But it was a blessing in disguise, because they got lucky once again, winning the draft lottery for the 2nd time. Coach Pop knew all along who he wanted to select with the first pick. But before he made the final decision, he did something extremely unusual, flying over to the U.S. Virgin Islands to meet the best collegiate player in the country. Over the next 3 days, a 21-year-old big man and a 48-year-old coach spent the entire time on the beach talking.
This nigga was 48 around this time, my nigga. How old is he now? What, he's been like 70?
Talking about life,
and he's
family,
still coaching,
priorities, almost everything except basketball. But when he returned to San Antonio, Popovich knew that Timothy Theodore Duncan was the right man for his franchise.
The San Antonio Spurs select Tim Duncan from Wake Forest University.
So it really strengthens us rebounding-wise, shot blocking, overall defense, obviously, and he also can score. So it brings back another scorer on the court. So it makes us a pretty dangerous club because we can attack from a lot of angles.
In the 1998 season, Duncan immediately proved that Pop chose correctly, averaging 21 points, 12 rebounds, and 2.5 blocks on 55% shooting. The Spurs won 36 games more than the year before, which broke their own record for the biggest single-season turnaround in NBA history. Timmy won Rookie of the Year, made first-team All-NBA, and finished 5th in voting for MVP and DPOY. And to say that he had a dominant rookie season would be an understatement. But after they defeated the Suns, the Spurs lost in the second round of the playoffs to a much deeper Jazz team. Pop then realized that his team was strong under the basket, but lacked shooting. So, for the 99 season, he added veteran marksman Mario Elie and Steve Kerr. With Elie and Kerr, Duncan and Robinson had reliable targets to kick the ball out after a double team. And because the Twin Towers averaged a combined 5 blocks per game, the Spurs were impenetrable inside the paint, leading the NBA in defensive rating. In a lockout-shortened season, San Antonio led the NBA with a 37-13 record and was even more dominant in the playoffs. The Spurs lost just one game in 3 playoff series, finally reaching their first NBA Finals. In the championship round, they played the New York Knicks, who barely made the playoffs, and became the first 8th seed to reach the finals. To make things even worse, the Knicks lost Patrick Ewing due to an Achilles injury. And without their best player, New York had zero chance against the post-up powerhouse that was Tim Duncan. Timmy averaged 27 points and 14 rebounds on 54% shooting, and he and the Spurs defense limited the Knicks to just 79 points per game, winning the series 4-1. Duncan was the finals MVP, and after the series, Coach Pop tried to console the losing coach, Jeff Van Gundy. "I've got Tim and you don't. That's the difference." In the 2000 season, Duncan and Robinson were named to both the All-Star and All-NBA teams. But after Timmy suffered a knee injury late in the season, the Spurs couldn't cope with the Suns, losing in the first round of the playoffs. In 2001, the Spurs once again dominated in the regular season with the best record, best defense, and with Duncan finishing second in MVP voting behind Allen Iverson, and third in voting for Defensive Player of the Year. In the first 2 playoff rounds, the Spurs easily defeated Minnesota and Dallas, but in the conference finals, they had no answer for Shaq and Kobe, as the Lakers swept the series. With the retirement of small forward Sean Elliott, who spent 11 seasons with the franchise, the looming retirement of David Robinson, and the overall old age of the team, Popovich realized he needed to inject new blood into the team and surround Timmy with younger players. Enter
Can AI agents debug Python code bases effectively? Augment code can. Here I have a Django.
Tony Parker. The skinny French point guard was a complete unknown for the majority of the NBA, and everyone was in shock when the Spurs selected him with the 28th overall pick.
The San Antonio Spurs select Tony Parker of Racing Club Paris.
Back then, the rest of the league thought European players were soft and unfit for the NBA. But the Spurs thought differently, putting more value on fundamentals and basketball IQ that European players honed since they were kids. Now, the Spurs owner, Peter Holt, wasn't a poor man, but he wasn't rich either, at least when you compared him to other billionaire owners. Like the NBA version of Moneyball, Holt, Popovich, and assistant general manager R.C. Buford had to think outside the box to find quality players, because they didn't want to overpay established stars. And they weren't a desired destination for top free agents. Even though the rest of the league looked at scoring and athleticism as primary values, the Spurs way was different. They've put more emphasis on attributes like players' intelligence, cultural fit, and the potential to learn. And because other teams weren't looking for these things, there was less competition for these players, who were available for less money. Other than scouting players in Europe, the Spurs also heavily relied on player development. While star players were certainly better if you wanted to win immediately, they often came with an ego. On the other end, when you get a player who still has to prove himself, then you could teach and mold him to buy into the team concept, which was one of the main postulates of the Spurs way. One of the Spurs' greatest assets has been Chip Englund, the best shooting coach in the league, who morphed many players into great shooters. With Holt, Popovich, and Buford having tremendous working relationships and trust in one another, the franchise leadership was top-notch, far superior to other franchises, where owners, coaches, and general managers were often pulling in different directions. RC and I have done everything together, says Popovich. From day one, we've done everything together. And our groups have done everything together. Managers are in coaches' meetings, we're in the managers' meetings, and walk in as we please. We talk about it, argue about it, have a beer or wine, and move on. We've done it all together. With such a great structure at the top, the Spurs rarely missed the target in the draft, and they never added players who didn't have the necessary attributes for their system. And after they drafted Parker in 2001, they also added a second-year wing, Steven Jackson, and Bruce Bowen, who was the epitome of the Spurs' way of finding talent. Bowen went undrafted in 1993, and then bounced around Europe and the NBA for almost a decade, until the Spurs recognized that his gritty defense and shooting ability would fit like a glove next to Tim Duncan. And soon, Bowen would unofficially become the first 3-and-D player in NBA history. In the 2002 season, Tim Duncan had the best year of his career, averaging 25.5 points, 12.7.
Kyrie be averaging the same fucking points and he don't get MVP. Kyrie averaged 20 points per game almost every fucking season, and y'all don't put him in the MVP race.
Rebounds, 3.7 assists, and 2.
I don't even think I'm joking, bruh. I'm gonna use this to fucking I'm gonna use this to rent, but I'm gonna use this platform to rent my frustrations with how y'all treat Kyrie, bruh. I'm gonna use it to vent my frustrations on how y'all treat Kyrie fucking Irving, my nigga. 2024, 2025 before he got injured, 24.7 points per fucking game, nigga. Let's go down some more. 2023, 2024. 25.6 points per game. No MVP race. 2022, 2023. 27, almost 30 points per game. Not even in the MVP race. 2022, 2023. 27 points per game. 2021, 27.4 points per game. 2020, 26.9 points per game. 2019, 27.4. 2018, 23.8. 2017, 24.4. 2016, 25.2. Kyrie only had one season when he's not in the 20s. One season, nigga. Why the fuck is he never in the MVP? What does he do to y'all to make y'all hate him so much? I don't understand, man. Y'all talk about Kyrie like he's the assiest player of all time. No, he's not. He's one of the best point guards ever. Who y'all know putting these numbers back to back to back to back to back to back?
.5 blocks per game, finally winning an MVP award. But even though the Spurs won 58 games and had the second best record in the NBA, they once again fell to the Lakers, losing 4-1 in the second round. After the 2002 season, R.C. Buford officially became the general manager of the franchise, adding a player who would prove to be one of the best draft choices in NBA history.
With the 57th selection, the San Antonio Spurs select Emmanuel Ginobili from Argentina.
Back in 1999, the Spurs drafted Manu Ginobili with the 57th pick. And just like with Tony Parker, nobody had any idea who Ginobili was.
I sit at home, I watch the draft, and we pick people that I've never heard of. Sitting there, Emmanuel Ginobili. Who did we just pick? I was like, oh yeah, he's gonna be great. He's this, okay, Pop, whatever.
But in the next 3 years, Manu became the best player in Europe, winning every possible trophy in the second best league in the world, and also leading Argentina to a silver medal at the 2002 FIBA World Cup, beating the USA in the group stage. Buford, who first scouted Ginobili, saw that his
What's his name? Bro, whose name is Buford, my nigga?
Talent was ready to come overseas, and Ginobili joined the Spurs for the 2002-03 season. After a somewhat disappointing rookie season, Tony Parker blossomed in year 2, and it probably wouldn't have been possible with any other franchise. Not only because nobody else would have even drafted him, but they wouldn't allow an unproven rookie to make mistakes next to the league MVP. But the Spurs were different, starting Parker and playing him 29 minutes per game in his rookie season. So when the 2003 season came, Tony was ready. Stronger and better adapted to the NBA game, Parker was one of the fastest players in the league, improving his averages to 15 points and 5 assists per game, becoming the second leading scorer on the team. With Ginobili, Popovich was losing his mind because Manu played purely off instinct. He was completely unpredictable and moved at a frenetic pace. Half the time, even he wasn't sure what he was going to do next. Manu was making crazy no-look passes that no other player would even think of, let alone try.
And he's making them too. Hey,
even though it
Jason
drove
Williams.
his coach crazy, somehow there was a method to Manu's madness.
They
Because
connected
it
it,
worked.
but it
He
practice
took
the
5
best
years of my
connect.
life away. At first I thought he was crazy, but then I realized I couldn't change him, and I just let him play his way. He shortened my life, but he brought I couldn't change him, and I just let him play his way.
Right through
He
Kobe
shortened
legs,
my
man.
life, but he brought a
Shit.
dose of unpredictability
I
that we
forgot how
were
good
missing.
Manu Ginobili
Popovich.
was, dude.
With the emergence of
I
Parker
forgot
and
about Manu
Ginobili,
Ginobili.
along with young point guard Speedy Claxton and forward Steven Jackson, the Spurs had a great mix of youth and experience, with veterans such as David Robinson, Steve Kerr, and Steve Smith. But in the center of everything was Duncan. At the age of 26, in his 6th NBA season, Duncan was at that sweet spot where athleticism and experience meet, resulting in another MVP year, with averages of 23 points, 13 rebounds, 4 assists, and
He's getting MVP for having 23 points per game. And Kyrie averages more than that, and he's not getting shit. I don't understand y'all niggas. Why?
3 blocks per game. Timmy led the Spurs to the best record in the league, but after they got past the Suns, in the second round awaited their arch nemesis, the Shaq and Kobe Lakers, who defeated them in the previous 2 seasons. However, this time, the Spurs were deeper and better balanced offensively and defensively, defeating the Lakers in 6 games. In the conference finals, the Spurs beat Dirk and the Mavericks in 6 games to advance to their second NBA Finals, this time against the New Jersey Nets. And even though the Nets had the best point guard in the NBA in Jason Kidd, and a gritty defensive team that played well together, they didn't have anyone who could stop Tim Duncan. In the deciding Game 6 of the series, Duncan had 20 points, 20 rebounds, 10 assists, and 8 blocks, nearly getting a quadruple double in what was one of the best finals games of all time. The Spurs won the championship.
And now this. Congratulations, San Antonio, for your 2003 NBA champion, San Antonio Spurs.
Thursday Night Football on Prime.
It's on. This week, an AFC East rivalry ignites in a heated division showdown. Stream Thursday Night Football.
Don't you these stupid bitch-ass athletes are really pushing it.
Fuck
up! That shit is tomorrow! I don't even see it. Keep saying it. God damn!
Significant compensation from a lawsuit currently underway.
Fuck!
With Duncan averaging 24, 17, 5, and 5, completely dominating on both ends of the court. After the season, David Robinson and Steve Kerr retired, and Steven Jackson left after the team rejected his wish for a big contract. And even though many analysts disagreed with this move, as Jackson was a vital member of the team with plenty of heroics in the fourth quarter, Pop often clashed with Stack, and he felt that no player was above the team and the Spurs' way. Despite losing 6 different players from their championship roster, the Spurs' culture was based on finding who could seamlessly fit into their system. And that's why they added 2 more European players in Hedo Turkoglu and Ratko Nesterovic, as well as Robert Horry, one of the most clutch shooters in history. And the results didn't suffer. In 2004, San Antonio had the best defense and the third best record in the NBA, as well as Robert. In 2004, San Antonio had the best defense and the third best record in the NBA. They swept the Grizzlies in the first round, but in the second round, they once again faced the Lakers, who were ready for revenge. With 4 future Hall of Famers on their roster, LA proved too strong for San Antonio, winning the series in 6 games. In 2005, the team was mainly unchanged, with the big 4 of Duncan, Parker, Ginobili, and Bowen leading the charge. Duncan's numbers decreased across the board, as Popovich became the first coach to load manage his superstars, realizing that he didn't need to overuse his star players in the regular season to win 50-plus games. 4 of his main players averaged 32 minutes per game, which had 2 benefits: more rest before the playoffs, and more minutes for role players, whose confidence grew as a result. San Antonio finished the season with 59 wins, and the best defense in the NBA for the 4th time since Duncan arrived, never finishing outside the top 3. But for the first time since they drafted Timmy, the Spurs didn't need Duncan to be their best scorer to win games. In the first round against the Nuggets, Manu led all players in scoring. In the second round against Seattle, Duncan was again the big dog, but Parker and Ginobili weren't far behind. And in the conference finals against Phoenix, the Spurs' Big Three averaged 70 points per game combined, defeating the Suns in 5 games to advance to another NBA Finals. In the finals, they played the Pistons, and it was a bar fight. With the 2 best defensive teams in the league going head-to-head, the 100-point mark was only reached once in a tough 7-game series. But then, in Game 7, Duncan took matters into his own hands, confidently announcing to the team that they weren't going to lose the series. Timmy led all scorers with 25 points.
But
and
with
with
fully rested, bruh. Like, come on.
3 points from Ginobili and big 3-pointers from Robert Horry, the Spurs prevailed, winning Game 7 81-74, with Duncan winning his 3rd Finals MVP. In 2006, the Spurs won 63 games, the best result in franchise history. And in the playoffs, after they defeated the Kings in 6 games, San Antonio played the Mavs, who had assembled a phenomenal roster around Dirk Nowitzki. And even though their Big Three averaged 73 points per game, the Spurs bench wasn't up to par, and the Mavs advanced after 7 games, despite a monster 41 points, 15 rebounds, and 6 assists from Duncan in Game 7. After a down year, we've seen many franchises try to completely reshuffle the deck and change half the roster. However, the Spurs aren't most franchises, and being erratic isn't the Spurs' way. For the 2007 season, San Antonio kept all their core guys and simply added a few more international players like Fabrizio Oberto, Beno Udrih, and Francisco Elson. And it paid off. The Spurs had an impressive 58 wins, the best net rating in the league, and the deepest roster in the NBA, with everyone contributing and every player feeling like they were an integral part of the team. Their biggest threat in the West, the Mavericks, famously lost in the first round against the We Believe Warriors. And in the second round, the Spurs escaped victorious against the 7 seconds or less Suns, after a controversial suspension of Boris Diaw and Amari Stoudemire for Game 5 of the series. And even though it wasn't always pretty, and naysayers saying they played slow, boring basketball, the Spurs didn't care. And after they defeated the Utah Jazz, they were in the finals once again. This time they played the Cavaliers and the 22-year-old LeBron James, who miraculously dragged a group of innocent bystanders to the finals. But even though LeBron was a phenom and the best player in the series, his team was arguably the worst that ever made the finals.
His team's too
With all 5 Spurs players focused on stopping James, nobody on the Cavs outside LeBron averaged more than 12 points per game.
LeBron left, and
they
get mad at LeBron for leaving trash. He had no help. Rollers is help. Burn your nigga jersey and shit because he had no help. And I'm leaving too. Fuck you. But the management not doing anything to make him stay. Kept the same garbage ass doodoo ass roster, and it got LeBron doing all the heavy lifting, bro.
Easily won the title in 4 games. With 24 points on average, Tony Parker led all players in scoring, becoming the first European player to win the Finals MVP. With 4 titles in 8 years, the legacy of the Spurs dynasty was complete. But they weren't done yet, even though it started to look like they were. Despite winning 50-plus games year after year, the playoff success they'd become accustomed to disappeared. In 2008, the Spurs lost to Kobe and the Lakers in the conference finals. The next year, the Mavs defeated them in the first round of playoffs. And in 2010, the Suns swept the Spurs in the second round, finally avenging all those losses in previous years. In 2011, San Antonio won 61 games in the regular season, but after another first-round playoff exit against the Grizzlies, many people wondered if this was the end of Timmy, Tony, and Manu. At the beginning of the 2012 season, Duncan was 35 and Manu was 34. In a game against the Sixers, Duncan stayed on the bench, and Coach Pop hilariously cited the reason he didn't dress.
So, Ridge is already really good at the wallet and all the everyday carry stuff, but
I
was surprised with how much they were.
But even though 2 members of their Big Three were older, the Spurs weren't ready to be scrapped off at the junkyard. The first reason for that was Tony Parker, who was 29 years old and had entered the prime of his career.
If you play the whole quarter, it will be 29 minutes.
But I'm fine. I didn't play for 3 days, but I'm 29 years old.
Get back out.
Even though he was always fast and a good ball handler, Parker wasn't much of a shooter in his early years. But after years of working with Chip Englund, Parker developed into one of the best mid-range shooters in the NBA. His spin move layup was basically unguardable, and Tony's floater was as pure as spring water. Parker became one of the most efficient point guards in the NBA. And in 2012, he finished 5th in MVP voting, making the All-NBA second team. However, the biggest reason for the Spurs revival wasn't Parker, but a guy with a weird laugh
Personal.
and the biggest hands you'll...
Every time I hear that, I fucking laugh. I'm fucking Kawhi, bro. I gotta laugh at him. Why did you do that dumbass, stupid ass laugh, bro? He made the whole all the announcers start laughing and start looking at him.
We'll ever see Kawhi Leonard. To get Leonard, the Spurs traded Pop's favorite player, George Hill, and to let go of a locker room favorite and a steady backup point guard didn't seem like a wise decision. At that time, Kawhi was an unproven player, a tweener not big enough to do damage with his back to the basket, and technically not good enough to create from outside positions with an unreliable shot. But Popovich was determined to get a new Bruce Bowen, who could guard anyone and hit an occasional spot-up three. Once Kawhi was installed in the starting five midway through his rookie season, he never let go of that spot, and Popovich got much more than just a new Bowen. He got a monster. Even as a rookie, Kawhi was able to lock up most opposing wings and steal their lunch money.
Like,
quick lateral movement,
stealing the change out their pockets, fam.
And those huge mittens. But it was surprising how efficient he was, working tirelessly to improve his shot as maybe the best protege of Chip England's school of shooting. Other than Kawhi, in true Spurs fashion, they also found other pieces that were overlooked by the entire league. Patty Mills was selected with the 55th pick, Danny Green with the 46th, and Boris Diaw was drafted 21st overall. Even though none of those players were drafted by San Antonio, they bounced around the league without anyone realizing their true potential. Mills was playing in the Chinese League before R.C. Buford signed him, and Green played in the G League before Popovich turned him into a 3-and-D sniper. Diaw was also forgotten in Charlotte before the Spurs scooped him up after realizing he was one of the best playmaking forwards in the NBA. Add in Brazilian center Thiago Splitter and sharpshooter Matt Bonner. The Spurs
look at his shot!
Add in Brazilian center Thiago Splitter and sharpshooter Matt Bonner. The NBA. Add in Brazilian center Thiago Splitter and sharpshooter Matt Bonner. The Spurs way did it again, rebuilding their bench and finding value where others didn't. Just like the year before, the Spurs finished the 2012 season with the best record.
You gotta fault the Spurs, bro. They make you feel like you're wanted, bro.
In the West. In the playoffs, they swept the first two rounds against the Jazz and Clippers. But then in the conference finals, they ran out of steam against the potent OKC Thunder with KD, Russ, and Harden. However, in the following season, with a more seasoned Kawhi, Danny Green, and the rest of their role players, the Spurs emerged as the best from the West, losing just 2 games on their way to another NBA Finals. But against the Miami Heat, they faced the best player on the planet and the best team in the regular season. And despite LeBron's greatness, the Spurs were up 3-2 in the series and were up by 5 with a minute left to play in Game 6. NBA representatives had already started rolling out the red carpet and bringing the Larry O'Brien trophy when a desperation 3 by LeBron cut the Heat's deficit to 2. In the following possession, the Spurs hit just 1 of 2 free throws, which gave Miami a chance to tie.
Brick, give me that shit. Here, Ray Allen, let me get that shot in. Bang! Ray Allen for the fucking 3, nigga.
Miami miraculously survived and won Game 6 in overtime. And in Game 7, Tim Duncan failed his team for maybe the first time. Timmy missed a close layup that would have tied the game. And in the next possession, LeBron hit a game winner over Kawhi to clinch the title for Miami. Ginobili played badly in the finals. Duncan was 37. And most analysts believe that this was the last hurrah and that the Spurs missed their final opportunity for a championship. But once again, the Spurs kept doing Spurs things. They added another European shooter, Marco Bellinelli, and started featuring Kawhi more in their offense, along with completely revamping their playing style, which showed the true genius of Greg Popovich.
Straight passing,
in the first decade of the Tim Duncan era, when Timmy was in his prime, the Spurs dragged games into the mud, playing at a slow pace, funneling opponents to the middle of the paint, and letting Duncan protect the rim. In the second part of Duncan's career, when he no longer had that same agility, the Spurs embraced the pro-European pace and space system that turned the former ugly duckling into a team that plays the most beautiful basketball in the league. Playing an extra pass, find the open man, give up the good shot for a great shot offense, and hard-nosed defense defined the new era Spurs.
Send that shit the fuck out of them big ass hands Kawhi got.
As far as everyone has a role,
What the
and
fuck you
everyone
doing in my lane with
contributes,
that shit?
everybody has got to be able to pass, and everybody has got to be able to think about the game and play defense the right way.
Get that shit out of here.
It's not like, okay, we have a shooter and that's the only thing he can do. Everyone on the Spurs has to be able to do everything. And I think in Europe, that philosophy starts at a young age. Boris Diaw. Pop is an innovator. He leads the charge in a lot of areas of coaching, especially at this level, said Coach Mike Brown, a member of Pop's staff from 2000 to 2003.
Are you looking to establish your business?
I'm gonna headbutt my monitor, bro. I'm getting tired of this puss-ass YouTube. Puss-ass ads, bro.
He does not rest in terms of thinking about the past. He's always thinking about what he can do to change and make the Spurs better going forward. And while the rest of the NBA thought the Spurs were toast, the Spurs toasted the entire NBA. They once again had the best record in the league, with the best net rating, even though their best scorer, Tony Parker, averaged just 16.7 points per game. However, in an egalitarian system where everyone gets the same opportunity to dribble, pass, and shoot, the Spurs had 8 players scoring more than 9 points per game, which made them impossible to guard. San Antonio defeated Dallas, Portland, and OKC to reach another NBA Finals, and again faced the Miami Heat. But this time around, the Heat had no chance. With their quick passes, ball, and player movement, Miami's trapping defense didn't work, because they simply couldn't
look at them passes, bro.
The Spurs shot 53% from the field and 47% for 3 in the finals, beating Miami in 5 games and celebrating their 5th NBA championship. Thanks to a suffocating defense and unreal shooting percentages, 61% from the field and 58% from 3, Kawhi Leonard was deservedly named the Finals MVP. But this title was special because it was a complete team effort, with San Antonio playing arguably the most beautiful basketball in NBA history. In the following season, Duncan made the All-NBA team at the age of 39, and Kawhi blossomed into a star, winning Defensive Player of the Year. But the Clippers, with prime CP3 and Blake Griffin, found a way to finally overcome San Antonio in 7 games. Next season, the Spurs did something unusual, for the first time in their history adding a marquee player through free agency, in power forward LaMarcus Aldridge. San Antonio won a franchise record 67 games, with the 3rd best net rating in NBA history. But after they got past the Grizzlies, they couldn't get past the Thunder. And in that series, Tim Duncan played the last game of his career. It's nearly impossible to find a player who has been as important to a team's personality and success as Duncan's was to San Antonio's. It's pretty unusual that a team adopts the personality of the franchise player. The problem is that the personality and the philosophy of the franchise player are not always great. The thing with Tim is that he was such a great teammate and team player and focused so much on winning and playing the right way that the franchise turned into his character, and it's been a good thing for the team for a long time. Boris Diaw. But even with Duncan gone and Tony and Manu at a combined age of 73, the Spurs again won more than 60 games in a season. Kawhi Leonard, who continued to improve year after year, averaged 25 per game and was slowly but surely transforming into the best player in the NBA. Kawhi was Duncan 2.0, a calm, no-nonsense guy who's all about hard work and helping his team win. The Spurs made the conference finals against the mighty Golden State Warriors with Kevin Durant. But despite all that talent, it was Kawhi who was the best player on the floor in Game 1. The Spurs held a 21-point lead in the 3rd quarter, when one dirty play changed the course of their franchise. Zaza Pachulia planted his foot in Leonard's landing area.
And this is a team y'all like? It's a team y'all like, huh? You're not supposed to win shit. Fuck Golden State, nigga.
Who injured his ankle and was out of the series. The Spurs got swept without their superstar. And though they didn't know it yet, it would be the last playoff game Kawhi ever played for San Antonio. In the 2018 season, Kawhi couldn't heal from a quad injury and grew unhappy that the Spurs rushed him to play. After 9 games, he stopped playing and stopped communicating with the team, after which San Antonio was forced to trade him. Even though they made the playoffs in 2018 and 2019, the Spurs dynasty was over after 20 years of sustained excellence. Led by great ownership, intelligent hiring, a world-class coach, and the best power forward in league history, the Spurs were winning for 20 years straight. which was unheard of in the NBA, especially in the era of salary cap and player empowerment. The only comparable dynasty to theirs is that of the New England Patriots, led by Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. Just like the Spurs, the Patriots had 20 winning seasons thanks to unshakable leadership, great ability to find and develop talent, a complete unison between their coach and franchise player, and a culture that allowed no messing around, with no player being above the team. With the Spurs, the greatest example of supreme culture and sacrificing for the benefit of the team is Manu Ginobili, who agreed to come off the bench, even though he could have been an all-star anywhere else. But the Spurs way was a culture of selflessness, lack of ego, a culture of work and responsibility. And that's why they were the longest dynasty in NBA history. Thank you for watching. And if you like this video, we have another one for you right here.
Gay, bruh. Stop sizing the Spurs.